I don't even know how to introduce this guy. And I just told him, and I've said it on the air before, and it's awkward to say it to him in person, but I've slept with this man more than he knows. Because
be sure you clarify that.
No, listen. I slept with him. I went to sleep as a kid with the old headphones and the radio dial on the side. If you're old enough, you know that. And I'd listen to Reds games while I fall asleep. And I still do. Go on YouTube. You can find old Reds games with Marty and Joe. And you can hear it. I fall asleep to that still every night. Folks, he's the Hall of Famer. He's the legend. I don't know how I'm going to do this interview. He's Marty Brennaman. Give it up for Marty Brennaman.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe.
I made it awkward, though. I know it's okay. Listen,
thank you.
That's what I do. Curious. You did it for years with Nuxall, and then you transitioned after Nuxall stepped down, and unfortunately passed away eventually. But like, how different was it for you announcing with somebody? And I heard you did the 75 World Series back then, right? Didn't you do the radio or TV for 75 World Series? So I know you worked with other people.
I worked on NBC television.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, when you go from Nuxall and you move on from that, what's that adjustment like for you, or is there an adjustment for you?
You know what? It's never been a big adjustment for me because, and this applies also to all the basketball I did on radio, and I can adjust to anybody. And I thank God. I mean, I worked with a lot of guys, especially when I did basketball. I worked in the ACC for 3 years on television, did all the NCAA tournament stuff, worked with different people every year. And I've never had any problem, especially when you work with a guy like Nuxall, you work with a guy like Jeff Brantley. They are there for a reason, and that is to talk about the game in a manner that I could never talk about it because I didn't play the game. And I used to tell guys when I did basketball especially, they would come in, they'd hire ex-players, and they were relatively new to the game, and they were nervous as the dickens. And I'd just say, you know, you're here for one reason. I can't do what you do, so you have the floor anytime you want it. I know a lot of radio guys that want to demand that they do the bulk of the talking, and I'm not like that. I got along with everybody, especially in TV, because the analysts are the most important guys on a television. They're like the NFL football. They got ex-players. They know everything about everything. Basketball is the same way. The play-by-play guy is simply there to tell you who scored, how much time there was left, and that type of thing. So it was never a transition for me. I got along with all the guys that I worked with. I've never worked with a guy that I did not like in any sport, and it's worked out well for me.
I'm not going to make it weird like Jeff.
It's okay. I'm okay. That's fine.
As somebody that's in radio and calls games, high school games and whatnot, listening to you and Joe was one of the biggest reasons my life went down the path it did. And we were talking to Jeff Brantley earlier, and he said his dream was never to be a Major League Baseball player. His dream was to be you and to do the things that you guys did. When you hear things like that, how many people that you've just helped shape their lives, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means a lot to me because when I was coming up, I'll never forget, I was working in a small town in North Carolina, Salisbury, North Carolina, back in that when I got out of school, and I went to Knoxville, Tennessee to sit in the television booth for Chris Schenkel and Bud Wilkinson. Wow. And they were wonderful to me, as opposed to some other guys that didn't have time for me. And I made a pact with myself then that if I ever received a position of status in any sport, that if I could in any way help a young broadcaster or broadcasters, I would do everything I could to help them. And I've stood by that. And I just feel like when someone comes up to me, I've had a lot of guys come up to me and say, I'm in the business because of you, because I listen to it. And that means a lot to me. It means something for the profession, that they thought enough of it. And honest to goodness, I've never met anybody who got into this business allegedly because they listened to me as a kid growing up that didn't say that I regret doing what I'm doing. I thoroughly enjoy it. That's the greatest profession to me in the world. It keeps you young. I'm a young 83 years old, and the
You're
profession.
not 83. I listened to you last night. You're still in your 40s. Go ahead.
Believe me, sometimes I don't feel that way. But I appreciate you saying that. That's very kind of you.
Bakes, he said young broadcasters. You and I have surpassed. We're not young
Oh, you
broadcasters.
guys been around the business for a long
We
time.
were young once.
We were young ones.
We were young
Okay.
once.
Here's my question.
I don't think I was, but go ahead.
Okay. I remember, so as I've said, again, admittedly, I've listened to your games at night when I go to bed when I was younger. So I've listened to games from 75, 76, 77, all the way up until the time you stopped doing Reds games. How do you think you changed, or did you change, as a broadcaster from the time you started with the Reds till the time you ended?
Well, the biggest change, and it came relatively early, when I came here in 1974 to replace Al Michaels, I was a homer. It was we referencing the Reds. It was them or they referencing, and I did that because I thought the club wanted me to. And as it turned out over the years, after I evolved into what I became, that's what they wanted me to be. But
Yeah, you weren't at the end.
No, I was not
I
that.
know you weren't. I know.
But what the thing that impacted my entire career was in 1976, maybe. The Reds played a game down at Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta, and that's when the Braves were terrible. And I think the Reds won the game 25-7.
Okay.
And the next morning, I ran into Jack Billingham, who was the starting pitcher that night, and got the win. I said, "That's a great game we had last night." He said, "We?" He said, "How many hits did you get? How many people did you strike out?" And from that day forward, I never used that word again. And all of a sudden, I became about as objective a broadcaster for a home team as you possibly can be. And I think that was the single biggest change. Now, in the aftermath of my career, I've become relatively laid back. In fact, last year at the Reds Fantasy Camp, which Amanda and I just came back from last night out in Arizona, and Adam Dunn was there. And I apologized to him. I said, "You know, I was really tough on you when you played." He said, "You're damn right you were." And I apologized to him because had Adam Dunn been playing today with the way the game is being played,
Right.
he'd be making $30 million a year.
You won't appreciate, you won't apologize to Russell Brandon though, right? He was bad.
No, but I liked him. He was a really good guy, and he and I played golf together for the year or so that he was with the ball club.
You got to call the 75, 76, and 90 World Series. You were
Right.
on the call then. You were on the call during Pete Rose's 44-game hitting streak. You were on the call when Rose got 3,000, when he broke Cobb's record, all of those things.
Right.
Looking back, how, like, when you, in the moment, I know you don't plan your call. You don't say, "I'm going to say this when this happens." But looking back, are you happy with the way you called those events?
Every one of them. And I did not plan. There are guys that plan and to have something clever to say when people are just blown away by when they hear it.
Yep.
I don't think I was good enough to plan something because it would have sounded contrived. And so I never did that. The only hope I had was that when an event took place, I was able to convey to the people listening the atmosphere at the time it happened, the things that were going on around the ballpark as a result of that event that took place. And first and foremost, you don't stumble over your words, because if you do, people are going to be hearing it ad nauseum for the rest of your life, and every time you hear it, you're going to cringe and say, "Golly, I can't believe I screwed it up that bad." And I was fortunate because that never happened for me. The two best, we're in our business, we can be our worst critics. And there were nights when I walked out of the radio booth and I said I ought to give my money back, my salary back, because I didn't do a very good job tonight. And on the other hand, the two calls that I had, of all the great calls that I was privy to, the two calls that I was most happy with was Ken Griffey Jr.'s 500th home run in St. Louis on Father's Day, and when Jay Bruce hit the home run against the Astros in the bottom of the ninth inning over here at Great American Ballpark to send them into the postseason. I was really happy with those two calls, and people ask me, "Well, what about Rose's record-breaking hit or Browning's perfect game, receivers only no hitter?" They were the two calls that I enjoyed the most.
I'm a little disappointed to hear that you apologized to Adam Dunn, because I was always right there with you on
know,
those
I'm sure.
calls. So I always remember those. But you just kind of touched on it a little bit, and Tito talked about all of the great Reds moments that you called. Is there one moment in your career with the Reds that stands out more than another? And then you mentioned all the other broadcasting you did, NCAA tournaments, you worked for NBC Sports. Is there one moment outside of Reds games that sticks out to you?
Any sport?
Any sport.
I had the privilege of doing the Duke-Kentucky game in the East Regional
The
of the
Laker shot, me
NCAA
too.
tournament. We love Christian Laettner. God almighty, we love Christian Laettner. And a funny story about that. Every season during the baseball season for about 15 years, because I know how Kentucky basketball fans are, I would find a time during the course of a season, a Red season, to bring up Christian Laettner's name on the radio. And it was planned. It was not by accident.
That was scripted.
And they would lose their minds. And I'd say after a couple of days, I say, you know, I continue to get a kickback. Every time I mention Christian Laettner's name on the air, I say, you folks got to step back and take a big, deep breath. This ain't the end of the world. And they would say some very, very bad things to me, boy.
I respect you more than any broadcaster, Marty, and so I want to let you know before I ask these questions, there's a right answer. Do you think Pete Rose will get in the Hall of Fame? And are you as angry as I am that David Concepcion is not yet in the Hall of Fame?
Well, let me take the second question
Good,
first.
that's what the
I'm
fans do.
absolutely beside myself every time that subject comes up. There are people in the Hall of Fame that shouldn't be. There are people who are not in the Hall of Fame that should be. Davey might be number one, but a close second is Veda Pinson. You look at Veda Pinson's numbers and you scratch your head and say, how in the world can he not be in the Baseball Hall of Fame? I never met Veda Pinson. I never knew him.
Okay.
But I know that if anybody deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, he does.
One year I did on my radio show was on Father's Day, on the Sunday, and I had Veda Pinson's son, Veda Pinson Jr. on the radio with me, because he's still campaigning for his dad. And I'm with you, Marty. You look at the numbers. That guy should be in the Hall of Fame.
There's no question about it. It's really a shame. And then in Davey's case, I guess if there is a reason, and I don't consider this one, but people will tell you that he's one of those guys who was so overshadowed by the Johnny Benches of the world, the Joe Morgans of the world, the Tony Perez's of the world, and the Peach of the world, even though Peach not in, that he's been lost in the shuffle. But he was, when they talk about Ozzie Smith and David Concepcion, David Concepcion has every right to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame just as Ozzie Smith is.
Marty, you talked about always wanting to be available to young broadcasters, to give back to them. There's some of these kids in the crowd that are like, I want to do what he used to do. What would be your number one piece of advice to them as they